There really is quite a bit to take in when you're trying to publish there, and more importantly, make some sales and make some type of an impact for yourself as an author. That's why I'm going to talk a little bit more about a new strategy for publishing on KDP in 2023. This was something I wanted to roll out to you back in January, but now we're finally getting to it, so I'm very thankful that we've gotten to this point. But without any further ado,
learn how to publish books and build your author business with award-winning author and self-publishing consultant Dale L. Roberts. This is the Self-Publishing with Dale podcast.
I think it's important that we go ahead and jump into the sponsored spot here because the fine folks over at Miblart want to hook you up with an ebook and print book cover design package worth $150. You can enter for your chance to win over at dalelinks.com/giveaway. The deadline is officially Tuesday, June 27th. So if you'd like to enter for a chance to win, go for it. And also you can go pick yourself up some great graphic design gigs over when you order from Miblart over at dalelinks.com/Miblart. Use the coupon code DALE10 to get 10% off your next order. All right, so today's podcast is going to be a little bit, it's going to be a broad stroke. And there's going to be some things that you're going to say, well, of course, that's a given. But I think there's going to be some things I want you to kind of weigh in on, think about putting it into your own strategy or how you could be able to utilize this, because this is not just me spouting off some theoretical evidence that's only applicable to me. There are some of these things that could apply to you. Now, why am I looking at a new strategy for publishing on KDP? That's going to be the very first thing. The old methodology would have me solely focused on leveraging KDP. I firmly believe no one author should place all their eggs in the Amazon basket. Authors who diversify their distribution are setting themselves up for better long-term success. That means going out beyond the confines of Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. Believe it or not, there is life outside of Amazon. Most would-be experts would have you focused on the launch when it's the pre-launch sequence that makes the most difference. Now, I'll be sharing a broad overview and will not be going nearly granular enough inside this podcast. This means I won't be talking about keyword or niche research, editing and proofreading, or anything that goes into the pre-production for a book launch. Feel free to browse my other podcast episodes where I've talked about each topic at length. Lord knows I've got enough of those episodes. Let's start out. There's three parts to this here because we're going to look at the pre-launch, the launch, and the post-launch. Starting it out with the pre-launch, what I'm going to recommend is that you get every iteration ready for launch. This is going to include things like the ebook, the paperback, the hardcover, and the audiobook. Now, the reason why I say those four specific iterations, this was something I learned through Reedsy, more importantly through Ricardo Fayette, who's actually from Reedsy. And one of his emails, he had shared a little bit of information about how it helps in having more product iterations on a single product page and becoming more discoverable. To me, I think that's probably a given, because if there is a customer that you're driving traffic to, let's say you're running an Amazon ad to your ebook. Let's say they go on over to your ebook and they go, I don't really like ebooks. But what if you had a paperback? Or what if you had a hardcover? Or what if you had the audiobook? You're giving them so many options that it will leave them with something that they can walk away from and say, okay, this is great. I'm going to go ahead and purchase this. Now, there's a little bit of a bonus here. Now, this is for mainly the nonfiction authors out there, more importantly. Now, if you're a fiction author and you find a way to work this, that's fine. See if you can make a video version. Now, you're probably saying a video version. Yeah, you could probably take your audiobook and put it with like a single static image and then do it that way. But more importantly, what I'm thinking about is actually creating like a course of sorts. Now, this is what I plan on doing with my upcoming launches here of 6 different publications. Stay tuned to this channel when you find out how I'm going to be doing this and how you can get involved. Now, let's go ahead and back it up here. Let's talk about the next step in the pre-launch phase. Building an ARC team. Now, this is an advanced review copy team, people that are specifically responsible for reading your book in advance, so that way when it launches, you're able to put out some type of reviews, because social proof is one of the biggest ways to generate more sales. In fact, even Amazon themselves said that 91% of customers browsing their online platform will always visit the reviews first before making a purchase. Now, building the ARC team is one thing, and actually getting a good ARC team together is another thing. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is this is going to be kind of a numbers game, because you're going to ask 10 people to review your book. And I'm just throwing out a random number. With that being said, typically 30%, a third of the people that actually commit to that are going to leave a review. Now, if you happen to have a better percentage than that, that's great. That's fantastic. But across the board, I found, historically speaking, about a third of your ARC team is actually going to leave a review. So when you're building out your ARC team, think about that 30% rule, all right? That 33.3% rule, if you will. Think about that. So if you're wanting to, say, for instance, get 30 reviews upon release, you're going to want to make sure you have 100 people on your ARC team. Is that impossible? No, but it's going to be a tall ask if you don't have, let's say, a large social media following or a huge email list. Now, speaking of, that's where we're going to tap into your email newsletter. I've said this ad nauseum that every single author should, at the very minimum, have an email newsletter of some sort, some way to get your readers and take them with you wherever you go. That is super, super, super important. Now, I'm not going to keep beating you up over this one. Either you do it or you don't. But it's one of the greatest ways to kind of leverage your following so you can work with other people. Now, let's just say, for instance, email newsletter. Okay, that's a given. We can ask the people in the email newsletter. You can probably even hyper segment it down to those that only open your email and click on the things that you have to offer. To me, when I'm building out an ARC team, I'm just going to send it out to everybody in my email newsletter. So that way I'm bringing in as many readers as I possibly can. Don't worry about losing sales or anything else like that, because chances are very likely those people who are subscribed to your newsletter will probably share so much about your publication that you'll make that money back that you would otherwise get through sales through each one of those people. Now, there are other services out there that will help you build an ARC team. Literally, all you got to do is just say Google ARC team, just Google that up. And you'll be able to find so many different services. Now, I'm just going to rattle off a few of them so you can probably write this down and search it up later on. Book Sirens, Book Sprout, Hidden Gem Books, and NetGalley. Now, each one of those, they're not free. And Hidden Gems Books has a long wait. So if you want to get anything done with Hidden Gems Books, you're going to need to at least plan a year in advance in order to actually get their services. And also, I found through experience using Hidden Gems Books, they're not really conducive to nonfiction books. They're more in line with fiction books. They even stated that themselves. Now, when it comes to NetGalley, if you go to NetGalley, it can cost an arm and a leg. It's a lot to work with. But I watched a video not too long ago on Bethany Adazada's channel. She actually is fantastic. Highly recommend everybody go and subscribe to her on YouTube. But she had brought up a NetGalley co-op. Now, this was run specifically by a service called Victory Editing. And you essentially pay, I think it was like $50 for a month to use NetGalley to get those reviews. And Bethany brought up a pretty good strategy to probably consider, and that would be is if you get the month package for co-op, what she had recommended was to do it 2 weeks prior to launch, 2 weeks after launch. So that way it's just right there between pre-launch and post-launch. So that way you can take advantage of all of that traffic. All right, so the other way to get it is going to be through author collaborations. Now, I've talked about this ad nauseum as well when it comes to newsletter swaps and things like that. Now, very first thing, big fan of Story Origin. Story Origin's a great author marketing tool, relatively inexpensive at about $10 per month or even less when you buy an annual plan. You can do newsletter swaps through them. By the way, there's a link to that inside the show notes, dalelinks.com/storyorigin. But you can arrange newsletter swaps with relevant authors in your niche. That's the most important thing. You're not wanting to do just newsletter swaps with any Tom, Dick, or Harry. So for instance, if you're doing some type of an erotica book, chances are likely you're not going to want to do a newsletter swap with me because I have primarily, people that are looking for self-publishing advice. So you're probably not going to be a good fit, and likewise. So make sure that you're finding authors in your niche. And as well, you could pick and choose. You don't have to necessarily say, well, that person's in my niche, and then you see there's a garbage cover, they write garbage, they have garbage reviews, so on and so forth. You get what I mean? So you can pick and choose. But it's going to take some due diligence. You're going to need to take some time. And you can rely on platforms like Story Origin or even the previous ones I mentioned, like Booksprout, to do newsletter swaps. But in the same instance, you don't need to limit yourself to that, because you can go into different forums and different communities. Heck, I've got a Discord community. You can probably reach out to some other people over there. Now, the very next thing is, what we got to consider is, what's the next phase? We got to start a pre-order at least 30 days ahead, meaning we need a pre-order starting 30 days, giving everybody 30 days on each one of these things. Now, that's a minimum. I wouldn't say you're going to want to do it too far in advance. Sure, on a platform like KDP, you can do 365 days ahead. Should you? It just depends on your marketing plan. Now, to keep things basic, I'm just going to tell you 30 days in advance. Now, here's what you're going to do. Pre-orders, you can do ebooks over on KDP. Love it. It's fantastic. It's super intuitive. It's very helpful. And as well, the clock starts to tick as soon as you start these pre-orders, by the way, algorithmically speaking, relevance. That's why I say you got to have a marketing plan in place. But with the pre-ordering the books, the cool thing is your book is going to remain in the hot new releases category. Actually, it's just called new releases these days. But having that is going to give you that unfair advantage, because you'll be able to hit that new releases category and get additional exposure. Now, when it comes to print books, there are a few sites you can do this through. I prefer a site like Ingram Spark and another site fulfilled service like Lulu Direct, Book Vault, Vervante, or Blurb Books. Now, I've been a big fan of Lulu for a while. I've only just been researching Book Vault and Vervante more recently, and Blurb Books, they've got great quality, but I've just got some questions and concerns when it comes to the cost. And so I'm not sure if I'd go with them. I'm just giving these as options to you that you can create some type of a checkout process on your own website. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, sure, you're going to want to drive traffic over to places like Amazon, but in the same instance, wouldn't it make more sense to remove the middleman? If you have the traffic, send them over to your own website. And if they choose to go to Amazon after that, then so be it. But at least you have some options on your website where you can collect all of the royalties instead of just a fraction of those things. Now, test these options before settling on one. So this means that if you get ready to start to launch your book, you should already have investigated those sites if you're looking at doing site-fulfilled services like Blurb, Lulu, Vervante, Book Vault, and so on and so forth. Now, what about audiobooks? Couldn't we do pre-order? Now, you can't do pre-orders through ACX because ACX is just a bunch of nincompoops. I'm just going to put it out there because they need to evolve with the times and they refuse to do that. One of the companies that does evolve with the times is Findaway Voices, owned by the company Spotify. Now, Findaway Voices has the option that you're able to put up things for pre-order. Now, all sites will list it as a pre-order. They won't publish it until the day it's ready to release, but I do know that places like Google Play Books will put it up as a pre-order, and people are able to order it that way. Now, you've already got all the pre-orders set in place. You got the ebook, you got the print book, you got the audiobooks. Fantastic. The next step is going to get a universal book link that you can make through a service called Books to Read. Now, 2 being a number. Books to Read is actually a free service put together by the fine folks over at Draft Digital. Go get yourself set up with a Draft Digital account, 100% free, and you can just go ahead and get yourself set up with Books to Read. Anytime, and this is even off of this whole lesson plan of me sharing this information, anytime you're sharing your book, use a universal book link. I am so tired of seeing authors being, uninformed or lazy, one of the two. I'm thinking it's probably uninformed when they're sharing Amazon.com for their book to an audience that's global. If you're sharing a .com address on social media, what you're saying to the people outside the US region is, I don't really care about making this easier for you. Make it easier for your potential customers. Create a universal book link. It literally takes seconds. All you got to do is just grab the link, you drop it into Books to Read, it creates a link, then there's a landing page. It will give them all of the options to where it's available to. Now, you'll need to plug in some of the other avenues involving print and audiobook, but having this available makes promoting so much more painless and with as little friction as possible for the customer. Now, while we're creating a universal book link, put a domain-specific redirect. As an example, I'd put something like dalelroberts.com/new book to send traffic over to my new book, if you will. Now, that's not necessarily a link. It just gives you an idea, because the books to read links are good. They're fine. They're fantastic. But I think when somebody reads that's outside of the business, they don't know what books to read is. They're kind of wondering and scratching their head going, I don't know. I'm not sure if this is legit or not. Whereas if you have your author-specific name or brand website there's a little less reluctance. And not to mention, you can be able to list this just about anywhere and everywhere, and people will be able to get to it. Now, another part of the pre-launch sequence is going to be running paid ads. If you've got the discretionary expense, I am big about doing Amazon ads. Amazon ads are dead simple, and actually over the next few weeks here on the podcast, I will be covering Amazon advertising in depth. So you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned for that one. But getting Amazon ads, it's going to be the way you're going to want to go. If you've got the discretionary expense, start out with sponsored products, use automated targeting. And then with automated targeting, Amazon ads figures out, okay, based on the keywords selected in the categories it's placed within, they're going to go ahead and serve that out over to a specific audience. Now it's up to you to go in and audit your ads on a regular basis, usually a weekly basis, daily, no more than once daily, that you're going to audit it based on the search terms report and using the negative targeting to remove any targets that aren't returning any type of an investment. All right, so feel free to use Facebook ads or Google ads if you want to, if you know how to use those ones. The other thing that I want you to consider is influencers. Think about how big influencers are these days. Now, contacting them is pretty much dead simple. There's a lot of influencers. You can just DM them, or you can even find their email address or their website. Book Talk, huge. Can you imagine if you get your book on a Book Talk account, somebody who's going to promote that? It's going to be huge. You will have to send an advance copy, of course. I recommend digital where possible, and only send physical if they request it, because that starts to get costly. I've been down that dusty road before, and it can cost hundreds of dollars if you just guarantee everybody can have a print iteration of your book. Now, the next thing is going to be, you're going to need to generate a pre-launch buzz through places like social media, again, your email newsletter, and media appearances. Now, for social media, share snippets of the book, a cover reveal, or character profiles with an AI-generated image. I really love that. I've seen a lot of authors doing that. Now, for email newsletters, talk about the production of your book, but make it a humble brag. You don't want to, just give too much, be like, hey, buy my book, buy my book. It could probably be, here's the process of how I did X, Y, and Z. Or the other day I was writing my book and this is what happened. Now, you're going to want to make sure that you run book promos to your product page. I've got a full list of websites with lists, 2 different book promo websites. Go to dalehanks.com/book promos for more details. You'll have to do some sifting through that, obviously. Now, that was the pre-launch. That's going to probably take the most amount of time, so make sure you do not rush it. Now, upon launch with ebooks, I distribute through places like KDP, Apple Books for Authors, Kobo Writing Life, Google Play Books, Barnes & Noble Press, Drafted Digital, and Smashwords, of course, and then PublishDrive. Though I'll admit I'll be using PublishDrive for all my wide publishing needs, because a year or two ago I bought up like 96 publishing slots from AppSumo for PublishDrive, so I don't have to pay the PublishDrive monthly subscription fee. Now, why PublishDrive? Unlike other aggregate publishing platforms, PublishDrive doesn't take a cut of the revenue. Instead, they rely on monthly subscriptions. Now, if I didn't have the AppSumo deal, I'd go with what I previously mentioned, in which I would just upload to all the different avenues. Now, when it comes to launching paperback and hardcover, I do that via KDP. You'll have to jump through hoops, because obviously if you did a pre-order on another site, they're going to recognize that the ISBN is currently in use. So you're going to need to contact KDP support for assistance. Now, why launch via KDP if I've already done all the other sites? Well, because you get more control over your metadata and you get a better royalty rate. Now, I'm a little apprehensive about the hardcover version through KDP, so I'll order a proof before going with KDP for hardcover printing. They just recently came out of beta, and actually I did a whole print-on-demand comparison series where I did hardcover proofs, and that was probably one of the worst proofs I got was through KDP. I'm hoping it was a fluke, but who knows? All right, and now when it comes to launching your audiobook, I won't do anything beyond Findaway Voices and Publish Drive for audiobook distribution. Heck, Publish Drive might be overkill since they don't reach too much further than what Findaway does. Now, the next thing you're going to need to do when you launch, notify your ARC readers. Tell them time to leave a review. Now, I just go into my Story Origin dashboard and send out the push notifications for my ARC readers because that's how I control all of my stuff. I told you, I like Story Origin. I'm sticking with them. Now, when it comes to post-launch, you're going to want to continue review gathering. You're going to need to continue public and media appearances, continue free and paid ads, and dip back into that book promo sites list. Now, follow up with any ARC readers who haven't left a review. One reminder, then be done with it. I will follow up 2 weeks after a launch, and a service like Story Origin, by the way, it handles the follow-ups for me, so I usually don't even sweat that part even. Now, continue author collaborations. You're going to want to do newsletter swaps, group promos, and even virtual book fairs through sites like ebook fairs, which you could go check them out over at my affiliate link, dalelinks.com/ebookfairs. Really great service. Wow, we just blazed through a lot of information. I feel like I fire hosed you guys and gals with all the information that you could use. But before we do my final thoughts, I want to bring to your attention that you do have a chance to win the Miblart ebook and print book cover design package worth $150 when you visit dalelinks.com/giveaway. The deadline is Tuesday, June 27th, but don't sweat it. If you miss that deadline, you can enter for the next giveaways because this is a 4-part series and we've got more giveaways coming along the way here. My final thoughts when it comes to that launch strategy. There is no one right way to publish a book. It comes with trial and error, theories and speculations. What might work for me might not work for you. But one commonality among successful authors is that deliberately planning before the pre-launch phase is what makes or breaks the success of your title, especially over the long term. So make sure that you're super deliberate. Don't just finish up a manuscript and say, well, it's time to publish, and then you hear crickets. Well, if you didn't take time to work on that pre-launch and get it all really dialed in, well, it's not going to be surprising if it flops. And, you know, I really teased this not too long ago here that I will be continuing on here with the Amazon Advertising for Books series here on this podcast. So you're going to want to make sure that you stay tuned to this podcast, and wherever you're listening or watching this from, make sure that you subscribe or hit that follow, and let me know your thoughts over in the Discord community that I have over at dalelinks.com/Discord. Till later, this has been Self-Publishing with Dale, and I'll catch you then.
You've been listening to the Self-Publishing with Dale podcast. Visit us at selfpublishingwithdale.com for more information on how you can level up your self-publishing business. Also, check out our growing video-on-demand service, chock full of free and premium content, when you head over to theselfpublishinghub.com. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on your preferred podcasting platform. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.